Jordan Gill versus Zelfa Barrett, 12 rounds in 130-pound division. This is going to be a solid fight. There's a lot at stake here for both men. I mean, they both have 2 losses on their resume. Neither one wants to have a third. Let's get into it. Let's start with Jordan Gill. 28 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, 9 wins by way of knockout. Man, he's coming off of a big year, which we'll get into very shortly here, but that year ended very nicely for him. But the year before, in 2022, it did not look that promising for him. A fight where he got overwhelmed when he stepped into the ring to fight Kiko Martinez. Martinez, who you know is a pressure fighter. He's got nothing to lose. And sometimes when a fighter has nothing to lose and all to gain, man, they become so much dangerous. To be honest, he wasn't doing so bad early in the first few rounds of the fight. He had the right idea. He was boxing, he was moving and trying to stay away from danger, not trying to stay in the pocket for too long. Gill is not really the most physical guy like that. You know, he likes to be on the outside and like to use his jab. And that's what he was trying to do against Kiko Martinez. But man, didn't it seem like every single round Kiko was getting a little bit closer and closer and closer? The shots that Kiko Martinez was landing wasn't really devastating, but you could see anytime the camera went to Gill's face, his face was red. So maybe they did not seem like he was making a massive statement per se, but man, Gill was feeling those punches. At least it was showing. In the third round on that fight, man, Martinez caught Gill with a simple like 1-2, boom, boom, right? And it landed cleanly, and Gill fell back on the ropes before falling forward to the canvas. That punch didn't really look dangerous or really too powerful, but, you know, a knockdown is a knockdown. And that's when I felt like things started to change for Gill, right? He became way more focused on being defensive, right? He was trying to stay out of the danger zone, staying out of range of Kiko Martinez, but he wasn't using that jab to really create that separation. He was just moving and he wasn't throwing a whole lot. And it just got to the point where you could see Kiko did not respect Gill's power by no means, because whatever Gill was shooting, he would just take it and come forward and keep pressing the pace and keep letting his hands go. He didn't respect the power and he just marched forward, kept throwing. He knew he could hurt Gill, and it just looked like Gill knew he was in trouble and he was in survival mode. Before the end of that third round, Kiko Martinez caught him and he dropped him. And then that's when, man, it was only a matter of time. But I got to give credit to Gill because he was fighting back with everything that he had. He had some nice body shots and the counters in the fourth, but then he got dropped 2 times and, you know, it was over with, man. So, you know, very interesting fight. You know, Martinez's relentless pressure, consistency, it was just too much for Gill on that night, man. It was a physical fight that just didn't work out in his favor. Again, as I said, it's always dangerous when you're fighting someone who's got nothing to lose. After that, he stepped into the ring to fight Mick Conlan. Conlan, who started his career on fire. You know his amateur pedigree. We talked about Conlan on this channel already, but then it got to a point where he got into some trouble and found himself in trouble against Lee Wood. Then he found himself in trouble against Venata Lopez. And so he was coming into that fight against Jordan Gill coming off of a loss. So I was curious to see how both men were going to look. Gill looked very locked in that fight. Gill dropped Conlan in the second with a beautifully short hook and got through when it did damage. Although Conlan would go on to survive that round, man, he just didn't look the same, right? Not that same confident Mick Conlan that we're kind of used to seeing. That swagger was kind of diminishing a little bit. Conlan was having some success in the 4th round, counters from in close, variation of punches, but it really wasn't a whole lot of offensive firepower from Mick Conlan. He had another great round in the 6th round where his shots seemed like, you know, he was sitting down on them a little bit more and they were starting to get through a little bit more. But I never got the sense in that fight that Gill was ever discouraged from what Conlan was doing. Conlan, when he's confident, right, and he's fully committing to being offensive, man, like he does some good work, right? The man's still a really good technician inside of the ring. But when he was just punching just to stay busy, it seemed like he was worried about what was going to come back at him, and he just didn't really commit to what he was doing, and it wouldn't work in his favor, right? You could see past a certain point, man, Gill, his mentality just seemed like he was looking for that knockout shot. He was sitting on his punches a lot more in this fight than I've seen him, and I don't consider him to be a big puncher nor an overly aggressive fighter, but he was on the front foot pushing the pace in this fight, and he ended up getting the stoppage win in the 7th round. But also what I noticed after that, it was a spectacular performance from him, absolutely. But even in the interview, man, Gill's face was marked up a little bit. There was a little bit of blood coming on the side of his nose. So he didn't seem like Mick Conlan was really doing too much, but maybe, something was happening in the sense of his punch resistance and how strong his chin really is and how easy he is to get cut or get marked up. But again, it was a great win coming off of a loss, and it was a good name on his resume. Another fight that comes to mind is when he fought Kareem Guafri, right? Gave him another good fight. He had to get up off the canvas and come back to win that fight. I think this is a more similar stylistic fight to what the Zelfa Barrett fight could look like, except I think Barrett is a bigger puncher than anyone Gill has faced, with the exception of Martinez, I would say. Gill stood in the pocket in that fight, man. He was doing real good, right? On the front foot, he was looking confident, right? He wasn't afraid to stand and trade if he needed. But when he stood in the pocket for too long, I think that's when he started to get in trouble the most. But for the most part, I was very impressed by that fight of Jordan Gill because felt like he showed a lot of grit, showed toughness, and the willingness to find a way to dig deep and to win the fight. Guafi again dropped him with the same similar shot that Kiko Martinez did, a simple 1-2. It was quick, it was accurate, but didn't seem like there was a lot of power on it either. It was just quick and snappy. As I said, Barrett is a bigger puncher than Guafi to me. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this one unfolds, man. Gill, he's a gritty fighter, man. He landed a big punch at the right time against Kareem Guafi to close out the show. And he needed that in order to win the fight. So this man can dig deep. He can dig deep. And so I'm looking forward to seeing if he can or if he has to dig deep again against Zelfa Barrett. Let's talk about Zelfa Barrett. 30 wins, 2 losses, 16 wins by way of knockout. I've been impressive by a few Zelfa Barrett fights. I was impressed when he fought Eric Donovan, undefeated fighter at the time. He stopped him at 8. It was a competitive fight, both men going back and forth until Donovan got caught with a bomb shot from Barrett. He boxed very well against Kiko Martinez, though he faded a little bit in the second half, but got himself a nice victory. And he was fighting off a little adversity because he had a cut on his eye as well, but he did fade in the second half of that fight. But I thought he composed himself well. I felt his performance against Farouk Kurbanov showed his scale, right? And how talented Barrett is. He showed everything in that fight to me from a boxing standpoint, pure ability standpoint. He won a wide decision victory and he looked very sharp on the night. Now, after that, he stepped in the ring to fight Shavkat Rakhimov. Man, what a fight, man. Rakhimov leading up to that fight is a guy who's known he can punch, a guy who knows to bring pressure, a guy who breaks you down round to round. Might start a little slow, but man, does he ever come on strong. To me, Zelfa Barrett looked great for most of that fight, right? Lateral movement was on point, always moving, never staying on the ropes, always. Even when he found himself on the ropes, he made sure he didn't stay there for too long. He used his jab, and most importantly, he kept punching. He kept going to the body. And Rakhimov, when Barrett was going to the body, man, he felt it. Barrett is not a guy who just hits you just to hit you. He hits you with intention, with precision, with a game plan, because he did slow up Rakhimov, and he had Rakhimov hurt a couple times in that fight. And he sets very good traps. You saw the trap, and Rakhimov was complaining a little bit to the ref about the low shots. He was fighting emotional, and he just pressed forward. Barrett bared him in towards the corner of the ropes, and Rakhimov put that hand forward. Barrett came under and hit him with an uppercut and scored himself a knockdown, man. It seemed like all of the momentum was on the side of Zelfa Barrett. He was boxing that beautifully and really neutralizing Rakhimov. You couldn't ask for a better start, especially with that knockdown, with that beautifully timed uppercut. Second half of the fight, ninth round of the fight, man, I had Barrett up a couple points, at least 3 on my scorecards. I'm like, man, if he can just hold on, if he can just win 1 or 2 more rounds, it's going to be over with, and he's going to be the champion. Now, we said that, I said that because Barrett at times, he has shown that he has faded in the second half of the fight. Now, I don't know what happened per se in this fight. It was a crazy turn of events because you could physically and noticeably see that Barrett was hurt. He was limping. He couldn't even move like that. He was moving extremely well every single round, and it just stopped just like that. And then you could see him hobbling significantly, and he was slowing down significantly, and he was standing and trading with the bigger puncher, and you saw it did not work out in his favor. Everything just happened so abruptly. Crazy turn of events, and he ended up getting stopped. But it was noticeable that something happened inside of the ring, man. It just was unfortunate how it turned out because Barrett was doing so well. So well. That was going to be a signature performance from him. But of course, in boxing, man, we know anything can happen at any given time, and a loss is a loss. But a great performance until the turn of events happened. After that, he got back in the ring to fight another pressure fighter, aggressive fighter in Jason Sanchez, and box his way back to a victory in the win column. And of course, he won his most recent fight against Kostin Ion. I thought he looked okay in that fight, but I like Barrett, man. I think he's a skilled fighter. I think if it wasn't for the injury against Rakimov, I think he would have been the champion, right? You know, it just happens like that sometimes in boxing. He would have got that belt, but it is what it is. So we move forward. So who wins? Man, I think this is going to be an exciting fight. I think things are going to heat up very quickly in this one. They're both confident guys, both confident in their skills, in themselves. But I like Zelfa Barrett to win this fight by stoppage. Both of Jordan Gill's losses, when he has lost, has came by some form of stoppage. And every time that I've seen him fight in his recent fights, man, he's always got, his face has been really marked up. You know, there's either blood coming down a little bit. So I question what his chin is really like and what it is going to look like, man. So a lot of questions for me on his chin regard. I don't question his heart. I don't question his skill. But what happens, as we know, Zelfa Barrett is a quick counter puncher and a precise and accurate puncher. What happens if that happens, if he gets clipped over and over and over again, or gets caught with the counter comes in, how much of that can he withstand before he breaks down? He could come out and do amazing work and win the fight. If Gill can weather the early part of the fight, I think there will be some opportunities there towards the second half of the fight. If Barrett does slow down, Gill can come on strong and see what he can do if the fight goes like that. But I like Zelfa Barrett to win this fight by stoppage. What are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you have winning this one? Let me know in the comment section below. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a couple ways that you can do so. You can like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like support by way of donation, you can find options in the description below. Also, my Cash App handle will be on screen as well. Any amount goes towards the growth of this channel. It'll be greatly, greatly appreciated. Shout out to everybody that continues to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, man. I appreciate each of you. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video, this time do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.